Hello friends. Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon, madam.
Namaskara, madam. Good afternoon.
Namaskara, sir. I know it is very difficult to attend post lunch session, but I think this topic would encourage you to or inspire you to participate actively in the session. I'm given 75 minutes, out of which for 45 minutes I will give presentation. Later we will have a discussion, and if you have any doubts or questions, I will try to attend those questions. I know that it may create contradictory or confusion or a hot debate among ourselves regarding empowerment of women. And this empowerment of women is of my interest area, as introduced in my biodata, that I have done research on empowerment of women itself by evaluating a government program called Dwakra in Mysore district. I would like to share that when I started doing research on empowerment of women in 1990s, it was a new concept and it was gradually developing. It was very difficult to understand the concept of empowerment and women's empowerment, because at that time books and articles and research were going on. It was the beginning. So I struggled a lot to get materials on empowerment and women's empowerment. Nowadays we get a lot of material, both in print and internet also. But at that time it was very difficult. And later I came to know that in 2000, later part of 1990s and 2000, that concept of women's empowerment became very popular, both in the NGO sector as well as in government sector. Now it has changed. The dimensions of women's empowerment has changed when compared to 90s and 2000 and in 20s of this century. It is a big and wide concept, very difficult to cover all the issues. I will try to make basic understanding of women's empowerment, then conceptual framework of women's empowerment, hurdles for women's empowerment, and the last part is something very interesting what I feel. I think we can have a discussion on that topic. The topic is, as I told, the empowerment of women, approaches and hurdles. Content is objectives, concepts of power, empowerment and women's empowerment, the conceptual framework of women's empowerment, significance of women's empowerment, hurdles for women's empowerment, and the paradox of traditional and modern outlook towards women's empowerment. This is a topic I have mentioned that it is interesting. Then objectives of this presentation is understanding the concepts of power. As we know that women's empowerment is a concept. In that it includes empowerment as well as the basic concept power. What is power? What is empowerment? Then what is women's empowerment? And the question is, do we have to study or understand women's empowerment separately? Empowerment is applicable to both men and women. But is there necessary to understand or to study women's empowerment separately? That shows the insignificance of women's empowerment. Then to know the conceptual framework of women's empowerment. That is, with a theoretical background, we have to understand the concept of women's empowerment. Then to analyze the hurdles for women's empowerment. Not only identify the hurdles, we have to analyze it. What are the hurdles for women's empowerment? Then let us see the concept of the basic concept around which the empowerment concept is evolved around. That is power. What is power? Power is the ability of one person to get another person to do something, either in positive or in negative way. If you take it in social, economic, and political context, the concept of power indicates control over resources and decision making. Even we can have the control over ideologies, or developing ideologies are also included in the concept of power. Then empowerment. Regarding types of power, we will go to women's empowerment. There we will discuss the types of power. Then empowerment. What is empowerment? Empowerment means it is a process. It is a concept as well as process to give power or to develop capacity to perform activity, to delegate authority, to give legal rights, to enable and to entitle. These are the what you call basic meaning of empowerment. Main thing is to give power. Power, what we have understood, that is enabling one person as in the social and political and economic context, giving control over resources and decision-making power, and control over ideologies also included. Empowerment is a process of gaining autonomy, control over one's own life, able to exercise choices, setting own agenda, capable of challenging and changing the subordinate position in the society. This changing and challenging the subordinate position in society is applicable to women. Then women's empowerment. It is also a process of enabling women to perceive themselves as able and entitled to make decisions, to become self-reliant, building productive capacities, challenging existing hierarchical power relations, and having control over resources. Overall, power empowerment, women's empowerment, it indicates that it is related to three what you call issues. One is having control over resources, then having self or becoming self-reliant, and having decision-making power. These are all basic issues related to empowerment in the context of social, economic, and political issues or arena. Here we have to understand the types of power. As I told you earlier, Jo Rowland, she has worked on women's empowerment. She is from England. She identified 4 types of power. That is power over, power to, power with, and power from within. These are related to women's empowerment. We have to be very careful what type of power we have to give it to women to become empowered. Power over is something that is having power over others, that is controlling others, making them to listen to us, to make them subordinate. That is power over. Second one is power to, that is to give something, what we understood in empowerment, to give something to enable them to become self-reliant or building productive capacities to make decisions, giving something to others to become empowered. Then power with. This is very important from women's point of view. What we gain power or what we or when we become empowered, it should not be limited to ourselves. It should be shared with others. That is, empowered women should share her power or authority, whatever she gets, with other women. That is power with. Then last one is power from within. This power identifies that every individual has some power within ourselves, some strength. Usually it may be related to spirituality. That is, inside we have some power, we have to channelize it. That is power from within. Among these, when we refer to women's empowerment, only last 3 powers can be referred or can be applicable, not power over. We should not take power over in women's empowerment, because our intention, our purpose of women's empowerment is not to control others, especially women. It's for men. That we know that why women are subordinate, why there is gender discrimination, why there is gender equality, that is difference, discrimination between men and women. All these are related to power that men are having in the society, that is in a patriarchal structure. So we should not focus on, we should not aim at gaining power over. Women's empowerment is related to, power with, and power from within. Women have to identify their own inner strength. and channelize it. And what power we gained, we have to share with other women, that is empowering other women. Power to mean enabling other women to become empowered. So these are the three concepts we have to understand in this topic. Then conceptual framework of women's empowerment. All these are developed in 1990s. Whatever issue we have while discussing or we are studying and understanding, we have to develop certain theoretical background base for that particular concept and process. Here, various thinkers and experts, they have identified approaches for women's empowerment, levels of women's empowerment, principles for women's empowerment, and indicators of women's empowerment as a conceptual framework for women's empowerment. If you take approaches for women's empowerment, six approaches are identified: education, economic development, consciousness raising, organizational, and political approaches. I think we can go briefly how these approaches can be adopted for empowering women. Education, we know that the importance of education in the life of an individual, especially women. We know that importance of education. Only education can enable women to become empowered or to understand themselves, to exposure to the world. For whatever benefits we get education, that will be provided for women through education. So education approach is there to empower women. Economic approach, that is enabling them to get earn income, get credit facilities, get skills, either to get job in the private and government sector, or to have self-employed or to become entrepreneur. So enable her to get economic independence, having her own income and having control over her income. Then development approach, that is related to government intervention, where through government policies and programs, women can be empowered. We have so many policies, constitutional guarantees, or various women's related or women specific policies and programs and schemes. Through development process or through development policies, empowering women is also one of the dimensions. Consciousness raising. This is also very important because for thousands of years, we have socialized or internalized certain things among women's mindset, that women are inferior, they are not equal to men, it is their fate, it is by nature, so they can't be equal to men. So all these are socialized or internalized women's mind. We have to create consciousness among women that they are equal, they are able, they are par with the women in all the aspects. And they have to make understand the importance of solidarity among women, how their unity could enable them to become empowered or solve their problems related to gender issues. Then organization, same that women have to unite together to fight certain social issues. For example, child marriage, liquor problem, then dowry, all kinds of violence against women. Certain social issues can be addressed only with the organization of women or with the mobility of women. So organizational approach is to unite women in groups or in organizations to empower them. Then last one is political approach for women's empowerment, involving women in all the decision-making bodies, whether at the local level, regional level, national or state level. Women have to be involved in all the administrative as well as political bodies. That is a political approach. We can refer one reservation for women in politics is one of the strategies of political empowerment of women. So these are the six approaches for women's empowerment. Then levels of women's empowerment. There are two levels are identified: individual and collective. Individual means enabling women to become empowered individually. Usually we know that girls or women from is it any problem? Is it okay? Shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So yes, the individual level, okay. Women or girls from educated families or well-to-do families or from cities, they can become empowered themselves, or we can empower them individually. Empowering women at individual level is one thing. Another level is that all women cannot become empowered or individually. We have to empower women in a collective way. That is, as I told in consciousness raising or organizational approach, women have to be mobilized in groups in organization and address the social issues. Addressing or solving women's problems, they become empowered. So collective level is mobilizing and organizing women at a collective level to address the social issues that are related to women. It may be dowry, child marriage, violence against women, getting equal pay, or getting any other facilities, to get legal rights. Whatever social issues we have to address it through collective empowerment of women. So individual as well as collective empowerment, both are important, but we have more important is collective empowerment of women, because there are so many issues that need to be addressed. Then principles of women's empowerment: self-reliance, self-awareness, building skills and capacity, collectivization, and contact with outside world. These are the basis for women's empowerment. They have to become self-reliant. We know that all through women's life, we are made them to be dependent. In the next last side, traditional and modern outlook, how women are made dependent in our traditional outlook. We will discuss it later. But as a principle, we have to make women self-reliant, not to depend on others. Self-awareness. That is also because it is internalized among ourselves that women are weak, they are dependent, they can't lead independent life, they have to depend on men. So many things are internalized in women's mindset, that we have to create self-awareness among women, building capacity, skills and capacity. As per the changing condition, especially as per the changing technological development, we have to build skills and capacity among women. There is no doubt they already have certain skills and capacity, but it is related to certain areas only. So we have to enlarge their skills and capacity. Then collectivization, as I told in the levels, collective empowerment, that we have to empower women in a collective level. Contact with outside world. That is, women are restricted to family roles. Within the family structure, they have to lead a life. That we have to expose them to the outside world. That is also a principle of women's empowerment. Then indicators of women's empowerment, qualitative and quantitative. Once we have through all these approaches and levels and principles, if we empowered women, how to identify that women are empowered? Something we have to go show it, no? Oh, yes, they are empowered. Women are empowered. Two types, qualitative and quantitative. You know that quantitative indicators are that can be measured in numbers. There are various indicators, quantitative indicator that shows that women are empowered, whether empowered or not. For example, literacy rate. If there is increase in literacy rate of women, or if there is increase in enrollment of girls in schools, there is decrease in dropout in school level, if there is increase in representation of women in higher education, if there is increase in women's employment in organized sector, if there is increase in number of women in legislation and parliament, whatever number indicators, that is they are called quantitative indicators. If there is increase in it, then it shows that women are empowered. Women are empowered. For example, if there is increase in number of women in legislation and parliament in every election, that indicates that women are empowering. But you know that in our political field, how for every election, women's representation or their number is decreasing. Even in the last legislative election, that number of women has decreased. That's political empowerment of women is decreasing. There are certain qualitative indicators also that cannot be measured in numbers, qualitative indicators. For example, how we treat women in the family or in the public places. Qualitative that we cannot measure in numbers, how we treat it. Are they getting share in the family properties? What is it that is decrease in the violence against women? Are they getting decision making power, especially regarding adopting family planning, having decision whether to have a child or not? What is the gap between the children? How many children she has to have? All these decision making power, if they have, then it indicates empowerment of women. In public places, how we treat women, how we respect it, how we look into them, all these indicate whether women are empowered or not. So there are qualitative indicators as well as quantitative indicators of women's empowerment. Then significance of women's empowerment. Why do we need to empower women? One thing is that the empowerment is applicable to all women, but in different ways and dimensions according to the circumstances of nation, class, caste, religion, and region. Of course, all women need to be empowered. But we cannot have the same policy or the same strategy for all groups of women, because women folk is not homogeneous group. They are different. There are differences among women on the basis of class, caste, religion, and region. So we have to have empowerment strategies according to their status on the basis of class, caste, religion, and region. And this empowerment of women is more relevant in the third world countries, because there is high level of poverty, feminization of poverty, low female literacy, high MMR and IMR, more unemployment among women, invisibility of women's work, and there is strong patriarchal and community values that restrict women to become empowered. So that there is need for women's empowerment in developing and third world countries. And empowerment of poor women is more important than that of more advantageous women or women at higher level, because women are deprived in two ways: for being poor and another for being women. ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಎರಡು ರೀತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಳಸ್ಥಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ ಬಡವರಾಗ್ಲಿ, ಬಡ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಎರಡು ತರದಲ್ಲಿ ಶೋಷಣೆಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ತುಳಿತಕ್ಕೊಳಗಾಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಒಂದು ಬಡವರು ಅನ್ನೋ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೊಂದು, ಎರಡನೇದು ಫಾರ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ವಿಮೆನ್, ಮಹಿಳೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೇನೆ ಕೆಲವು ಅವಕಾಶ ವಂಚಿತರಾಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಡಿಪ್ರೈವ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್, ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ನೀಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸೆಟ್ರಾ. ಪೂರ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಡಿಪ್ರೈವ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ on the basis of caste, religion, and region. All these recent issues you can trace. ಈಗ ಇತ್ತೀಚೆಗೆ ಏನೇನು ಗಲಾಟೆ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಇಡೀ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ, ಅವುಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ರೆಫರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಅವುಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಗಮನಿಸಿದ್ರೆ, ಹೇಗೆ ಜಾತಿ, ಧರ್ಮ ಮತ್ತೆ ಪ್ರಾದೇಶಿಕತೆಯ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಬಡತನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ತುಳಿತಕ್ಕೊಳಗಾಗ್ತಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಗಮನಿಸಬಹುದು. Why we have to talk about women's empowerment, especially poor women? They are deprived of basic needs. There is gender inequality and gender discrimination, and there is imposition of triple burden. This concept we will discuss on Monday's session, where we will analyze the concept of work from feminist perspective. Women are imposed with triple burden. One is domestic work, second one is reproductive work, and another one is outside work. So triple burden is imposed on women. There is patriarchal ideologies that make women more vulnerable and disempowered. So there is need for empowering women through external. Could you please mute your audio? Somebody is speaking. So women are made vulnerable and disempowered. So we have to make an external intervention to empower them. Another thing is the significance of women indicates that women must get aware of their subordinate position caused by gender, caste, class, religion, and other social structure, and organize themselves to fight. Unless we get aware ourselves that we are subordinate, we are disempowered, we cannot empower women. Women themselves have to become aware of their subordinate position. Then women should free from existing perception that they are weak and inferior to men. As I told you earlier, it is internalized among both men and women that women are weak and they are inferior to men, and we cause that it is nature, it is their fate, it is their pre-birth. So many beliefs are imposed on both men and women that women are inferior and weaker to men. So that we have to change by empowering women. In order to empower them, we have to change their mindset. If we change their mindset, automatically they will become empowered. Another one is we know that throughout the history, women are not identified. They are invisible in history. Whichever historical records we take, all are related to men only. Does it mean that women are not in history? Certainly they are in history, but they are not recorded, or they are not documented in historical issues or historical records. So in order to empower them, we have to rebuild history from a feminist perspective, and we have to include or record women's contribution struggles in history so that they become visible in future history. ಮಹಿಳೆಯರದು ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಕಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. Because the whole history is his story only, not her story. ಯಾವುದೇ ಇತಿಹಾಸವನ್ನ ದಾಖಲೆ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರು ನೀವು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪುರುಷರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಹೊರತು ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ನಮಗೆ ದಾಖಲೆ ಸಿಗದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. So we have to rebuild history from feminist perspective or from women's perspective. One example I can give you, if you look into the history of freedom movement of India, ಎಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಪುರುಷರು ಭಾರತದ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಹೋರಾಟವನ್ನ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರದು ಪಾತ್ರ ಇನ್ವಿಸಿಬಲ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಯಾವಾಗ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರೇ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಸಂಗ್ರಾಮವನ್ನ ಬರೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚೆಚ್ಚು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಬೆಳಕಿಗೆ ಬರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಯಿತು. Why do we have to record or include women in history? We have to show that women are empowered. ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಹೋರಾಟ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಂದಿನ ಪೀಳಿಗೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮೋಟಿವೇಶನ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಲ್ಲೂ ಸಾಮರ್ಥ್ಯ ಇದೆ, ಅವರು ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಬಲ್ಲರು ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾವು ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಂಗಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು include women in historical records and make their contributions visible. Once they become empowered, they will have control over their labor, income, sexuality, reproduction, and mobility. Women are disempowered because they don't have their control over their labor, income, sexuality, and all these things. Once they become empowered, automatically they will have control over all these aspects. And even when women are empowered, then they will be able to identify their problems, find out reasons for their problems, and resources to solve them. They will be able to solve their problems themselves once they are empowered. So these are the significance of women's empowerment. Then hurdles for women's empowerment. It is nice to talk and think about women's empowerment, but is it easy to achieve women's empowerment? Certainly not. It's not so easy. There are so many hurdles for achieving women's empowerment. First one is the basic hurdle is patriarchy. You know that our whole societies in all over the world, it is mainly patriarchal in structure. That is male domination. In all the aspects, men are dominated, women are in subordinate position. So patriarchy itself is a hurdle for women's empowerment. Second one is socialization. We are socialized in such a way, both adults and at the childhood level also, we socialize in such a way that we show that men are in superior level, women are in inferior level. That is, we cultivate among children that gender inequality and gender discrimination through socialization. We can give a lot of examples since the even before the birth of a child, even at the fetus level, it starts gender discrimination. Even at the time of after the birth, during childhood, that childhood, and in the teenage level, and adult, and at the old age level, throughout women's life, there is a gender inequality and gender discrimination that is cultivated through socialization, in education, in media, in neighborhood, in family structure, in all the family activities you can identify, and various cultural activities, various beliefs, practices, they're all indicating the gender inequality and gender discrimination. That will be internalized among men and women. You can take example of marriage. What are the rituals we followed in marriage institution? They are all indicating gender inequality. ಸೊ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದಂಗೆ ಕುಟುಂಬದ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನ್ ನಾವು ಆಚರಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಹಬ್ಬ, ಜಾತ್ರೆ, ಹರಿದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನ್ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಗಳು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವೋ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆನೂ ಪುರುಷ ಮತ್ತು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರ ನಡುವೆ ತಾರತಮ್ಯನ ತೋರುವಂತಹ ನಂಬಿಕೆಗಳ ಆಚರಣೆಗಳು ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಸ್ತ್ರೀ ಪುರುಷ ನಡುವಿನ ಸ್ಥಾನದ ಕುರಿತು ಇಂಟರ್ನಲೈಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಸೋಷಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅದು ಇಟ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್. Since it is socialized for thousands of years, it's very difficult to change the mindset of people. That is mindset of men and women internalized for thousands of years with this gender inequality and gender discrimination. Existing social structure based on gender, caste, religion, and regional and class, they are the hurdles for women's empowerment. That we can discuss in detail how the family structure leads to disempowerment of women. Even sometimes government schemes, economic and development policies and programs, they are framed or implemented to empower women. But all the time we cannot say that it empowers women. Recent issue we can identify that government has sanctioned or give license for establishing liquor shops. It is a government economic or development policy. Government wants more income from liquor shops. But what is the consequence of establishing more and more liquor shops on the status of women or empowerment of women? Recently, just yesterday, women in Vijayapura, in one of the taluks, some women went to police station and gave complaint about the liquor problems. They established the liquor shops nearby. So it is easy for men to go and take it. If the government doesn't start liquor shop, then women can have control over their men, not to have alcoholic. Some various, so for example, government may give permission for corporate sector to establish their industries or corporations, corporate offices. While acquiring land, government gave permission, but once the land is acquired, does it think about what happened to the families on which which are depend on that land? ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಭೂಮಿನ ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲಿಸ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಕಾರ್ಪೊರೇಟ್ ಆಫೀಸ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಭೂಮಿ ಅಕ್ವೈರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಆ ಭೂಮಿಯನ್ನ ನಂಬಿ ಬದುಕದಿದ್ದಂತ ಕುಟುಂಬಗಳ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ತೀವ. Or for in the name of development, government acquire land for highway development, for railway development, railway line development, even for that what you call layout development. ಅದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಭೂಮಿಯನ್ನು ಅಕ್ವೈರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಆ ಭೂಮಿ ಕಳ್ಕೊಂಡ ಕುಟುಂಬಗಳ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ವಿಮೆನ್ ಹೂ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ದೇರ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್? They may get compensation, but do women have control over the compensation? ಯಾರ ಹೆಸರಲ್ಲಿ ಭೂಮಿ ಮನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಹಣ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಹೆಚ್ಚನ್ ಪಾಲು ಅದು ಪುರುಷರ ಹೆಸರಲ್ಲೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Recently I have conducted one project on Mysore Bangalore Highway Express from Mandya to Mysore area. So hundreds of families have got affected because of that highway project. What about the women's condition there? It is very critical and very pathetic for women to lose their land and lead life after the acquisition of land. ಅದ್ರದ್ದು ಇನ್ನೂ ನಾನು ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಹೆಚ್ಚು ತೊಂದರೆಗೊಳಪಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋರು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೆ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದಿ ನೇಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮೇ ಅಂಡರ್ಟೇಕ್ ವೇರಿಯಸ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್, but what are the consequences of development activities on families as well as women that we have to address? We have to understand it. So these are the different hurdles for women's empowerment. We can make a list of so many hurdles. For time limit, I have mentioned those limits. Then this is a more interesting issue or topic I would like to share here, because as an hurdle, we identify that there is paradox in the traditional and modern outlook towards women's empowerment. For the last 10-15 years, we are seeing that how the concept of women's empowerment, which was in 90s, and now what is the concept of women's empowerment? Nowadays, more traditional outlook of women's empowerment is gaining more importance. We have to understand what is the difference between traditional outlook and modern outlook towards women's empowerment. Traditional outlook advocates women's ideal womanhood. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಭಾರತೀಯ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರ ಆದರ್ಶ ಪಾತ್ರ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರದು ಅಂತ, ಐಡಿಯಲ್ ವುಮನ್ ಹುಡ್. But modern outlook demands why not ideal manhood also? Whatever you expect for women, ideal womanhood, there should be manhood for men also, no? So that why should only limit it to womanhood? That is challenged by modern outlook. In traditional outlook, women are worshipped as goddess. ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ. ಈಗ ಮೊನ್ನೆ ದಸರಾ ಹಬ್ಬ ಆಯ್ತು, ದೀಪಾವಳಿ ಆಯ್ತು, ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ದುರ್ಗಾ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. In traditional outlook, we worship women. Hello. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So, but modern outlook demands to treat women as human beings. ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ದೇವತೆ ಅಂತ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡೋದು ಬೇಡ, ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗಳಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಪರಿಗಣಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ದಿ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ಮಾನವರಾಗಿ ನೋಡಿ, ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ದೇವತೆಯಾಗಿ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡುವ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್, ಅಯ್ಯೋ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ನಾವು ದೇವರಂತೆ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಬೇಕಾ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ? ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ ಕಟ್ಟಿಸ್ತೀವಿ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ವ್ರತ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಏನೇನೆಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಹೊಗಳುತ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೂ ವಾಸ್ತವದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೂ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಅದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ. ಅಂಡ್ ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಸಬ್ಮೆಸಿವ್ನೆಸ್. ಮಹಿಳೆಯರನ್ನ ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಅಧೀನದಲ್ಲಿರ್ಬೇಕು, ನಮ್ಗಿಷ್ಟ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನೀವು ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಎಲ್ಲ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಗೌರವ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಬಟ್ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಟ್ರೀಟೆಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ನರ್ಸ್. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಡಿಯಾಳಾಗಿ ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಸಹಭಾಗಿಗಳನ್ನಾಗಿ, ಪಾಲುದಾರರನ್ನಾಗಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್. ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಆಸ್ ದಿ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸ್. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಆದಿಶಕ್ತಿ, ಇಡೀ ನಮ್ಮ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡವನ್ನ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿಸಿರೋದೆ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ಸೃಷ್ಟಿಕರ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅವಳನ್ನ ಗುರುತಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ನೇಚರ್. As men, they are women are also part of nature. Then we need not to consider that it is created by women. Women are creators of another living being, sure, but we need not to worship them as creator of universe. Just treat them as part of nature. Then traditional outlook considers connecting interdependence and complementary of women and men. Woman and man and the name of nature and man. ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಯೂಶಲಿ when we compare universe with men and women, it says that women is nature and culture is men. ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪುರುಷ, ಪ್ರಕೃತಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಹಿಳೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಈಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಇನ್ ರಿಯಲ್ ಲೈಫ್, ನಾಟ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಫಿಲಾಸಫಿ. ಬರೀ ತತ್ವ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ನೀವು ತತ್ವ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನನ್ಗನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಈವನ್ ಕಂಪೇರಿಂಗ್ ನೇಚರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕಲ್ಚರ್ ವಿತ್ ಮೆನ್, ವುಮೆನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮೆನ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ರಿಮಿನೇಟರಿ. ಪುರುಷನ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಗೆ, ಕಲ್ಚರ್ಗೆ ಹೋಲಿಸಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮಹಿಳೆಯನ್ನ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಗೆ ಹೋಲಿಸಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮಹಿಳೆಯನ್ನ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಗೆ ಹೋಲಿಸುವುದೇ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರನ್ನ ಕೀಳಾಗಿ ನೋಡುವ ಒಂದು ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಾನು ಭಾವಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಕಂಪೇರಿಂಗ್ ವಿಮೆನ್ ವಿತ್ ನೇಚರ್ itself is a discriminatory outlook as far as modern outlook is concerned. Then traditional outlook promotes high respect to women through glorification of womanhood and motherhood. ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ವುಮೆನ್ಹುಡ್, ತಾಯಿತನವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಗ್ಲೋರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ. says that women become complete only when she becomes a mother. ತಾಯಿ ಆದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅವಳು ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣಳು ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ನಂಬಿಕೆ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೆಸಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಆದರ್ಶ ಪತ್ನಿ, ಆದರ್ಶ ಮಹಿಳೆ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಿರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ದಿ ಗ್ಲೋರಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆರ್ ವರ್ಷಿಪಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ವಿಮೆನ್ ಬೈ ಪುಟ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಹರ್ ಇನ್ ಸಬಾರ್ಡಿನೇಟ್ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ಇನ್ ರಿಯಲ್. ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ದೇವತೆ ಅಂತ ಪೂಜಿಸಿ ಅವಳ ತಾಯಿತನವನ್ನ, ಮಹಿಳಾತನವನ್ನ ವೈಭವೀಕರಿಸೋದು, ಇನ್ನು ವಾಸ್ತವದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವಳನ್ನ ಕೀಳಾಗಿ ನೋಡುವುದು. ಕೀಳಾಗಿ ನೋಡೋದು ಒಂದು ಎರಡು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, ನೀವು ಸರಸ್ವತಿ ಅಂತ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಆದ್ರೆ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಲಿಟ್ರಸಿ ರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ? ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ 50% ಆಫ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಆರ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿಟ್ರೇಟ್ಸ್. ಹೌ ಇಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್? ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮಿ ಅಂತ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಹಣದ ದೇವತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಹೌ ಮೆನಿ ವುಮೆನ್ ಆರ್ ಅರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಹೌ ಮೆನಿ ಆರ್ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಓವರ್ ದೇರ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್? ಈಗಲೂ ನಾನು ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ. ದುಡಿಯೋ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆಯಿಂದ ಸಂಜೆವರೆಗೂ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ತಿಂಗಳಾದ ಸಂಬಳ ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅದನ್ನ ಗಂಡನ ಕೈಲಿ ಕೊಡುವ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಪಾಠ ಈಗಲೂ ಇದೆ. ನಾನು ಐ ಬಿಲೀವ್ ದಟ್ ರೀಸೆಂಟ್ ಜನರೇಷನ್ ಈಗ ಒಂದು 20s 30s ಅಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು those who are earning, I thought they are having control over their income, but some cases I have experienced, I have seen, they are saying that oh madam illa ಈಗಲೂ ನಾವು ಸಂಬಳ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಗಂಡನ್ಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ರೇನೆ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಸಾರ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗೋದೇ ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ನಂಗೆ ಅದು ಕೇಳಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಬೇಜಾರಾಯ್ತು. ಈಗ್ಲೂ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ದುಡಿದ್ರು ಅವ್ರ ಆದಾಯದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ವೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ಎಂಪವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವಿಮೆನ್? ಸೊ ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಡಿಫರ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಐಡಿಯಾಲಜೀಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸಸ್. ಇವಾಗಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ನಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಅಥವಾ ರಿಯಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೂ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸವನ್ನ ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತಿದೀವಿ. ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಇನ್ ಐಡಿಯಾಲಜೀಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್. ನೀವು ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರೋ ಅದರ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಒಂದೇ ಸಮಯ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಗಿವ್ಸ್ more importance to women's chastity and purity, whereas modern outlook promotes sexual freedom. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳೋದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪಾತಿವ್ರತ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮಹತ್ವವನ್ನ ನೀಡಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮಹಿಳೆ ತನ್ನ ಶೀಲವನ್ನ, ಪಾವಿತ್ರ್ಯವನ್ನ ಕಾಪಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದೇ ಅವಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಗುರಿಯಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ರೋಲ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದಾರಲ್ಲ. ಸೀತೆ, ಸಾವಿತ್ರಿ, ಮಂಡೋದೇವಿ, ಅಹಲ್ಯ, ಇವ್ರಗಳ ತರ ಅರುಂಧತಿ, ಇವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಪಾತ್ರದ ಮಹಿಳಾ ಪಾತ್ರಗಳಿಗೆ ಮಾದರಿ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳಿಗೂ ಇದಿರ್ಬೇಕು, ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಡಿನೈಸ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ವಿಮೆನ್, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಸತಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್, ಚೈಲ್ಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೇಜ್, ಡಿನೈಂಗ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್, ವೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ವಿಮೆನ್. ಈ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ಇದಾವಲ್ಲ, they are denying women human rights. But modern outlook towards women's empowerment advocates women's human rights in every aspect, whether in education or in work or marriage, free from violence. All these demanded by modern outlook, that women's human rights should be protected and respected. Then what is the impact of these paradigms? That is contradictory, no? In traditional outlook and modern outlook, what are the impacts of having this outlook? Definitely it lowers the status of women. Then decreasing sex ratio, that we can have long discussion about sex ratio. It is decreasing at various levels. ರೀಸೆಂಟ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಮಂಡ್ಯ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಕೆಲವು ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಿಮೇಲ್ ಫಿಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೇಸಸ್ ಕಂಡು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಹಳ್ಳಿಗಳಲ್ಲೇನೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಯುಟಿಲೈಸಿಂಗ್, ಅಮ್ನಿಯೋಸೆಂಟಿಸಿಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಥವಾ ಅಲ್ಟ್ರಾಸೌಂಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಭ್ರೂಣ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಅಥವಾ ಗಂಡು ಅಂತ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅಬಾರ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿಸೋ ಕೇಸಸ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. So because of this female feticide, there is decreasing sex ratio. Still there is female high illiteracy. There is decreasing school enrollment among girls, high dropout among girls, especially ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಹುಡುಗಿಯರ ಶಾಲಾ ಬಿಡುವಿಕೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಚೈಲ್ಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೇಜ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಅದು ಕೂಡ ಅಂಕಿಅಂಶಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. Facts are showing that there is increasing child marriages after the COVID period. That still 90% of women are working in unorganized sector without minimum wages, equal wages, job security and legal protection. Their condition, that is also a big topic that we can discuss about women in unorganized sector. There is increasing violence on women. ಈಗ ಮಣಿಪುರದಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಇಸ್ರೇಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇರೋದಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳ ಮೇಲೆ ವೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಎಷ್ಟಾಗ್ತದೆ. ರೀಸನ್ಸ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್, ಬಟ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸಿಂಗ್ ವೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್ ಇನ್ ವೇರಿಯಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್. ಲೋ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಷನ್, ಇದು ಕೂಡ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅಂಕಿಅಂಶ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸುವಿಕೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ hurdles and this impact of paradox regarding traditional modern outlook shows the significance of women's empowerment. What to do? How long we can continue with this? We have to change the status of women. We have to empower women. So we have to develop certain strategies to empower women. Strategies for empowering women is also another issue that we can discuss. So I think these are the issues I wanted to share with you. I'll stop here. If there are any questions or any discussion, just you can share also. Need not to ask question. It is welcome. Thank you. Is there any question or any sharing of your opinion? ಅಥವಾ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಪ್ಪಿಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೂ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯವನ್ನು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸಬಹುದು.
Madam, here one question. Yeah, say while development of infrastructure, government will acquire the lands and it will be from the women. But is there any remedy for this, madam?
Yeah, one thing that government take many actions to reduce the bad impacts of these land acquisition. First one is we know that there is lot of corruption and favorism, everything works in these development activities. One important strategy they can adopt is while giving compensation, it should be given in joint name. Whether that house or land is in the name of men, while giving compensation, that should be given in joint name. And while giving job also, there is a what is understanding MOU is maybe there between government and that development corporate and people who have lost land. They have give assurance that they will give job to members of the family.
Yeah, this was resettlement and rehabilitation camp.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that rehabilitation is not taking place properly without consulting the affected people.
Yes, but in Almaty they have done a very good job.
I'm not sure that rehabilitation and compensation are given properly. I'm not sure because I told you, I have conducted a project in Mysore Bangalore corridor express road. There I have collected data from 100 families. Nearly 50 families, they have not given compensation properly. And many cases are in, they went to court also. When the case is in high court, they can't take the compensation also, and their case cannot be completed for a long time. They have lost a house, they lost trees and so many things they have not because of land acquisition. Many people are without house also. So their condition is very pathetic and it is affecting their health also. You know how the works usually they conduct. They have not conducted, they not constructed the road scientifically. They keep the path as it is only. They have not constructed that is drainage system properly. Flood water and everything drainage that comes to their house, those are in the side of the highway. So really very pathetic, and it is affecting women more than men. So development activities usually not fruitful or not good in terms of those for the families who are affected by the development activities.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
And one thing I would like to share, I have not covered it. What are the consequences of women's empowerment? Does everything okay if women are empowered? Everything will be changed or everything will be okay? It is not so. We can empower women, but we cannot expect that everything will be okay after empowering women, because empowerment of women has consequences on the family structure and on the society as a whole. You may heard that there are more divorces in metropolitan cities. Causes are put on, or the blame is put on women only, especially empowered women. Since women are empowered, that there is increase in divorce cases in cities. They are relating empowerment of women with divorce cases. So how to address that issue? That we have to think about. As I told, it is easy to empower women, but the question is, are men are able to accept empowered women, or are men are able to accept the consequences of women's empowerment? Once they become aware, once they become self-reliant, and once they get exposed to world, can they expect that the traditional role of women? That is not possible. So there will be conflicts in the families after the empowerment of women. One example, if empowered women, they demand share in the household work. In traditional outlook, women believe that household work is their responsibility. It is women who have to do it. But empowered women, those who are working outside, they demand that they expect that since they are equally working with the men outside, can they expect to do the household work themselves when they come home? They demand, why don't you do the household work? If men do not accept that, then there will be conflicts. It may lead to divorce. So we have to be careful about empowerment of women. Unless men accept the empowered women, then it is difficult to think of women.
Ma'am, good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, continuing with what you said right now, unless and until men accepts, ma'am, why are we looking for approval?
No, when in the family, when people are living together, we expect that family members to share or
True.
automatically we expect that.
True.
Approval means we expect that changes in the family structure need not to be approval, but if we expect, if they don't, then it is difficult for women. You might observe that so many girls are giving up the jobs, even if they are getting a good salary, and if they are doing well in the working sector, they are dropping out the jobs, mainly because it is difficult for them to balance the housework as well as that is triple burden, I told you.
Ma'am, I have one more observation.
These are the consequences.
Hello.
Please.
I have one more observation when we are talking about the approval from the family. Okay. So the moment that we are using this term approval, we are just making a kind of a power hierarchy itself. And then when we are talking about gender empowerment and those kind of a thing, somewhere we are going into the trap of, unempowerment actually, because approval means who will give approval? Somebody who is having a higher, psychological power. So we are inviting gender, I will say, in equivalence. So can we use some better terms than the approval? For example, I'm making my family aware about what are my decisions, versus when I'm seeking approval whether I should do this or not. Because empowerment is a psychological game. It's not, it's to be experienced. It should be a kind of a given to someone. But the moment we use these traditional terms like approval, I think then we are doing away with whatever that we are talking about in terms of the gender parity, I would say. Although what you are talking about is the reality, ma'am. I completely agree with you that that what you are talking about the reality, because without that approval, maybe she will not be able to work peacefully, because a lot of cooperation will not come. But it may have certain, it has certain consequences. And it turns out to be that I'm allowing you to work. It is like a mercy connotation come into the picture. That's only what I can see. I have not done any project, but what I see in the surrounding with my personal observation, and that's why I feel this term may have a little problem, ma'am.
That is, we have to do it. We have to adopt strategies at two levels. One is at parents level, that women, how they make understand their men, not only husband, even other men members of the family, how they are managing. So I think we need not to wait for approval. We have to make them to accept it, that changes. Sometimes women, what they do know, it is internalized among themselves. Automatically, when they come home, they start their working.
Ma'am, that is a cultural conditioning. That is a cultural conditioning that we have gone through, and unconsciously we transmit it also, actually. Because having this notion of that I'm empowered has certain consequences, because you are no more going to be perceived as a female. Feminine characteristics are going to be compromised, and then the women itself question, okay, do I want an empowerment or not? Because it comes at certain cost. Am I ready to bear those costs or not?
What always feel that whatever women, the feminine characters are, they are good. Why not we develop or cultivate those feminine qualities among men also? Here that socialization comes. Even when
so ma'am, somewhere
itself.
Yeah, I totally agree. But somewhere I think this has to start with at the very grassroots level, from the family. When every member in the family believes in that, there should be a gender fair kind of a development of the child, actually. There should not be a clear, because usually what happens with the working women, that they are working at the workplace and they are working at home also. Their duties are not going to get over once the office is over. Whereas for men, largely it is, once the office is over, their work is almost over. When they are coming back home, it is more a kind of a relaxed zone, whereas it is not for the females, ma'am.
Yeah. That mindset, we have to change it. So again, what I feel, that responsibility again falls on women only. That they have to change the mindset of men members of the family, that when they come home, they cannot sit quietly by reading paper or going for walk or for going for jogging like that. They have to take the duty that when they come home, what they have to do in the evening, what they have to prepare for night, what are the responsibilities of the children, that rearing of the children should be shared by men and women.
Ma'am, I have another question and also observation. That is, ma'am, when we talk about the feminine qualities, if I talk predominantly about the physiological qualities, I want to point out two practices that is very much rampant in India. One is prostitution and another is surrogacy. Selling of reproductive labor to upper class people or those who are economically affluent. They buy the reproductive capacity of the poor women. So in that case, ma'am, do we feel that women are empowered? And in case of prostitution, also, do we feel that if I have the right to sell my body in order to earn, Is it empowerment?
Prostitution, we cannot say that empowerment of women. We know that how their conditions are there for prostitution. That is completely different issue. That prostitution is not an empowerment thing. As far as surrogacy is concerned, here it is mainly because of technological development. One thing I would like to share here that in 1970s, one radical feminist, Shulamit Firestone, she presumed that if we women have to become independent or free from the patriarchal domination, they have to have control over reproduction. She suggested or recommended to have artificial reproductive technology. She just assumed but she expected that one day if women get control over their reproductivity, they become free. She thought like that, and she suggested that also. But in 2000, in recent last 20 years, the technology has come. Does that technology is empowering women? Very unfortunately, women in themselves are going for surrogacy and that adopting the reproductive technology, IVF or some test tube baby, anything. They are forcing that family structure or the society is imposing or forcing them to adopt that reproductive technology, not on their own. Sometimes they are meant to go on their own because there is that's glorification or imposition of motherhood on women. I have observed so many girls and women, even educated women, they are going for that IVF and surrogacy. They are affecting their health. They may not be successful. And doctor says that only 30% of success is there for IVF, but still girls are going for that. So using technology may not always give empowerment of women. That misuse of technology leads to disempowerment of women. Even amniocentesis. That technology is also, it is to test, to check the health condition of that fetus. But now it is using for identify the sex of the fetus. So technology sometimes it is not empowering women. Technology has to empower women, but it is misused by the doctors and techniques for disempowering women. So,
exactly. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, that is why
this is a completely
true, ma'am, and that is why there is a debate between right to abort, right to abortion.
But unfortunately, in America, that right has not.
No, not in every state. Yes, ma'am. Yes, true. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Has a multi-layer complexity actually. The moment we are opening up one layer.
One thing as far as when we talk about empowerment of women, if we empower women in one aspect, that will have repercussion on the empowerment of women itself. For example, if we say that if we educate women, then women will get empowered. If women get empowered through education, that will affect reversely. Oh, they say that since you are educated, you are not listening to me. You are going against. Or you're bringing bad name to our family. You marry somebody you wish. You're not accepting our selection. So they say that education itself is that against our traditional thing. So they may check their education also. They prevent them from getting higher education. So that's the problem. Whatever one solution you give for women's problem or gender inequality, that will result in another problem. But we cannot stop there. We have to find solution for that problem also. So it is ongoing, and that is empowerment of women is a very complex and complicated issue. We have to address it very carefully.
One thing is very good, ma'am. I would say, even though there are a lot of, the perceptual aspect of inequality, at least we are able to talk about it, which was not so.
Yeah.
The gradual changes should be welcome. We should not be always dissatisfied zone kind of a living into it. At least we are able to talk about, or maybe some small changes that we can imbibe in our own personal life.
That is why women's empowerment importance is given to sharing of women's experiences. That is very important. But in traditional, we will say that women's issues are purely private. They should not be shared in the public. It should be limited to family only. Oh, you should not talk about. In Kannada, we say that we cannot, we have to open the diseases, but cannot the family matters. In Kannada, we say that Vyadi Rettu Samsara Guttu. The family issues should be keep it in confidentially. We should not open it, but we have to open the diseases issues. So by saying that family issues are purely private, we are denying or we are disempowering women, because they cannot share. Some family violence is going on, domestic violence is going on. If we say that, oh, it is your private matter, it is your family matter, we should not interfere, then how can we solve the domestic problem, domestic violence? So empowering women is sharing of women's experience and problems is very important. Thanks for participating in the discussion. ಬೇರೆ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಕನ್ನಡದವರು?
ಹಲೋ
ಹಲೋ,
ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವರೇ.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ.
ಈಗ ಈ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಈ ವೇದಿಕ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಇಂದ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ವುಮೆನ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ಇನ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವೇದಿಕ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೆ ಸಮಾನವಾದ ಸ್ಥಾನಮಾನ ಇತ್ತು, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಸ್ಥಾನಮಾನ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತಾನೆ ಕೊಟೇಶನ್ ಶುರುವಾಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಆದ್ರೆ ಖಂಡಿತ ಅಂತ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಅಪ್ರಿಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ, ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಬಟ್ ಹೌ ಮೆನಿ ವಿಮೆನ್ ಆರ್ ದೇರ್? ಯಾರೋ ಕೆಲವು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಮಾತ್ರ, ಯಾರೋ ಲೋಪಮುದ್ರಾ, ಮೈತ್ರಿ, ಗಾರ್ಗಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕೆಲವೇ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಪಡೆದಂತ ಕೆಲವು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರನ್ನ ಆಧಾರವಾಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ವೇದಗಳ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಸಮುದಾಯ, ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಗುಂಪಿನ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೂ ಸಮಾನ ಸ್ಥಾನ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿತ್ತು, ಅವರು ಎಂಪವರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್?
ಬರೋದಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ,
ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ದಾಖಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಗುಂಪಿನ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ವಲಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಇರ್ತಾರಲ್ವಾ, ಅವರ ಸ್ಥಾನ ಹೆಂಗಿತ್ತು ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾರು ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಪಡೆದಂತ ಯಾವ್ದೋ ಒಂದು ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ವೇದಗಳನ್ನು ಬರ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಭಾಗವಹಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು, ಚರ್ಚೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಖಂಡಿತ ಒಪ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ, ದಾಖಲೆ ಇದೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ.
ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಋಷಿಮುನಿಗಳ ಅವ್ರ ಮನೇಲಿ ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಅದರದೇನು ಕಾಣಿಸ್ಕೊಳಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಮಹಿಳೆ ಹೊರಗ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೆ ಬುದ್ಧನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಬುದ್ಧನ ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರ ಸ್ಥಾನಮಾನಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಓದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ?
2-3 ಅಂಶ ಅಷ್ಟು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮೊದಲು ಬುದ್ಧನೂ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೆ ಸಮಾನ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಪ್ಪಿರಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಿಕ್ಕುಗಳಾಗಕ್ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರಲ್ಲ. ಯಾವಾಗ ಅವನ ಚಿಕ್ಕಮ್ಮ ಮತ್ತೆ ಆನಂದ, ಅವನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತ, ಇಬ್ರು ಅವನಿಗೆ ಕನ್ವಿನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮನವೊಲಿಸಿ, ಇಲ್ಲ ನೀನು ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳಿಗೂ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಕ್ಕೆ ನಂತರ ಕೆಲವು ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಿಕ್ಕುಗಳಾಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನು ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಆ ಅವಕಾಶನ ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ತೇರಿಗಾತ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಎಷ್ಟು ಪದ್ಯ ಕವನಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಬುದ್ಧ ಹೇಳಿದ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ನಿಯಮಗಳನ್ನು ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಯಶಸ್ವಿ ಬಿಕ್ಕುಗಳಾಗಿ ಹೊರಹೊಮ್ಮಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಅವಕಾಶ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಸಮಾಧಾನದ ವಿಚಾರ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಹಂತಗಳಲ್ಲೂ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೆ ಸಮಾನ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿಕ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ
ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸೇರಿತಲ್ಲಿಗೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ಈ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅಕ್ಷರ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ಬಾಪುಲೆ ಸಾವಿತ್ರಿಬಾಯಿ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್.
ನಾವ್ ಅದನ್ನ ಗುರುತಿಸ್ಬೇಕು.
ಅದನ್ನ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಒಂದು ಆನಂತರ ಹಿಂದೂ ಕೋಡ್ ಬಿಲ್, ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗಾಗಿನೇ ಕೋಡ್ ಬಿಲ್ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡಿ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ಮಹಿಳೆ ನನಗೆ ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಉಪವಾಸ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಗತ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಒಬ್ಬ ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಮೊಟ್ಟ ಮೊದಲ ಭಾರತದ ಸ್ತ್ರೀವಾದಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಗುರ್ಸೋದು.
ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ನನ್ಗೊಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಇದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಬಹುತೇಕ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಹಿಳೆ ಚಿಂತನೆ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನನ್ಗೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ನಂಗೆ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ.
ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್
ಅವರು
ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಚಿಂತನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಲುವುಗಳಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಗುರುತಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರ?
ಗುರುತಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸರ್, ಖಂಡಿತ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಇನ್ನೂನುವೆ. ಈಗ ಅವರೊಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಇವರು ಸರಸ್ವತಿದು ಅವರು ಅನುವಾದ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಅವ್ರದನ್ನೇ ಒಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕ, ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೆ ಎನ್ಕರೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಅವರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ.
ವೋಟಿಂಗ್ ಪವರ್,
ಸಂವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಂಗತ್ವ ಸಮಾನತೆಯನ್ನ ತರದೇ ಹೋಗಿದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಏನು ಆಚೆ ಬಂದಿದೀವಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಬರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನೇ ಆಗ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ.
ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕೆಲವರು ದೇಶಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ಮಹಿಳೆ 10 ಮಕ್ಳು ಎತ್ಕೊಡ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಒಬ್ರು ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಮನೆ.
ಅದನ್ನೇ ಸರ್ ನಾನು ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಔಟ್ಲುಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿರೋದು ಅದನ್ನೇನೆ. ತಾಯಿತನವನ್ನ ಇವರು ವೈಭವೀಕರಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ವೈಭವೀಕರಿಸೋದ್ರ ಮೂಲಕ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳನ್ನ ತಾಯಿ ಪಾತ್ರಕ್ಕಷ್ಟೇ ಸೀಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಅವ್ರು ಆಚೆ ಬರ್ದಂಗೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಒಂದು ತಂತ್ರ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ,
ದೇವದಾಸ್ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟೇಶನ್ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಒಂದು ವರ್ಗನೇ ಸೀಮಿತವಾಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇದನ್ನ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರಲ್ಲ, ಈ ತರದ ಈ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಇವತ್ತಿಗೆ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನು ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಕಟ್ಟುಪಾಡುಗಳು ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ. ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರು ಖಂಡಿತ ದೂರ ಇದೇನು ಬರೋದು.
ಹೌದು, ಸಂವಿಧಾನದ ಆಶಯಗಳನ್ನ ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಅವರ ತತ್ವಗಳು ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಿಜವಾದ ಮಹಿಳಾ ಸಶಕ್ತೀಕರಣ ಆಗಕ್ ಸಾಧ್ಯ.
ಇನ್ನು ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಹೆಸರು ಹೇಳಿದೇನೆ ಬೇಕಾದಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮುಗ್ದೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಇಂಥದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ.
ಅದು ಯಾರು ಬಿಡ್ಲಿ ಬಿಡಿ, ಅದಂತೂ ಸತ್ಯ ಅಂತೂ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಕಾನ್ಶಿಯಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಪ್ರಮೋಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬರ್ಬೇಕು.
ಹೌದು ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಮೇಡಮ್, ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರ ಎಂಪವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟಿದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಇತ್ತೀಚಿನ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ?
ಅದನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಆಯಾಮಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಭಾಗವಹಿಸುವಿಕೆ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಒಂದು ಅವರ ಕಲಾ ಪ್ರತಿಭೆ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನ ಪ್ರೋತ್ಸಾಹಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಅಭಿವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ರಂಗ ಒಂದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇಡೀ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ರಂಗವೇ, ದಿ ಹೋಲ್ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇಸ್ ಪೇಟ್ರಿಯಾರ್ಕಲ್, ಮೇಲ್ ಡಾಮಿನೇಟೆಡ್. ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿ?
ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ನಾನು ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರ ಅಂದಂಗಾಯ್ತು.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಸೊ ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲೂ ತುಂಬಾ ಮಿತಿ ಇದೆ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಪ್ರವೇಶಕ್ಕೆ. ಕಳೆದ 10-15 ವರ್ಷಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಉತ್ತಮಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ದೆಹಲಿನಲ್ಲಿ 4-5 ತಿಂಗಳಿಂದ ನಡೆದಂತ ಕುಸ್ತಿಪಟುಗಳ ಪ್ರತಿಭಟನೆಯನ್ನ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ
ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ,
ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಏನು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರ ಸ್ಥಾನ ಏನು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅಷ್ಟು ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಸರು ತಂದ್ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಮಕ್ಕಳು, ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು
ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ
ತಮ್ಮ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಯನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದೊಂದು ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮುಂದಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಸಶಕ್ತ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೆನೆ ಹಿಂಗಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ
ಮೇಡಮ್. ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಸೇರಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರು
ಅದೇ ಹೇಳಿದ ನೀವು, ಪೇಟ್ರಿಯಾರ್ಕಿ ಅನ್ನೋದು, ಎಂಪವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ಜಗತ್ತಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ತಂದ್ರು ಎಂಪವರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೋತಾ ಇರೋ ಹೊತ್ತಿನಲ್ಲೇನೆ ಅವ್ರು ಏನಾದ್ರು ತೊಂದರೆಗೊಳಗಾಗ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹರಿಸಕ್ಕೆ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಂಪವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಾವ್ ಹೆಂಗ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು?
ಅದೇ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದು ಮೇಡಮ್ ನಾನು.
ಅದೇ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಡಿಕ್ಟರಿ ಇದೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು, ಮಹಿಳಾ ಸಶಕ್ತೀಕರಣ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬಾ ಗೊಂದಲ ಮತ್ತೆ ದ್ವಂದ್ವಯುಕ್ತವಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಹೇಗೆ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಅಳವಡಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಇನ್ನು ಚರ್ಚಿತ ವಿಷಯ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ತಗೋಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ.